George Trevor played a pivotal role in the designing of the mansion that would eventually be known as the Spencer Mansion in Resident Evil 1, that came along with weird-ass designs that contained hidden passageways and traps to the unsuspecting visitor. He had a wife called Jessica and a 14-year-old daughter called Lisa. They would all suffer in the mansion and eventually meet their ends due to Lord Oswald E. Spencer. So what exactly happened to the Trevor family? I'll try to cover it as best I can, being a guy in his bedroom. George was a renowned architect in New York due to his designs, prime example being the Spencer Mansion itself. He most likely owned a company called Trevor and Chamberlain, which is found in a Resident Evil 7 note. Chamberlain, however, isn't ever actually mentioned, ever, apart from in this one note, so yeah, you could still say that it isn't his company, but the name is quite significant in Resident Evil, so I'm going to say that it is its company. Yeah, don't quote me on that. And I don't know who Chamberlain is. Like I said, he could have just died and it's just Trevor, or Trevor just liked Chamberlain the name and just slapped it on the company. But yeah, moving on. In 1962, Oswald Spencer contacted George to construct a mansion deep within Raccoon Forest in the Arklay Mountains. Trevor accepted this offer without much reluctance. With almost unlimited funding, and is told he is able to design it in whatever way he pleased, with whatever traps or passages he imagined. It's understandable why he'd taken the offer. I mean, come on, I'd do that too. Jumping 5 years ahead, on Friday 10th of November 1967, Spencer learned that he couldn't keep George Trevor alive due to him being the only other person to know every part of the mansion's secrets. He decided to invite George and his family to the mansion to lure them into the estate. Lisa and Jessica would arrive first at the mansion without George due to his work, so he said he would be there at a later date. When they arrived, they were detained immediately and subjected to Umbrella's experiments, both of them being injected with the progenitor virus. I hope I said that right. With Jessica given the test subject A sample and Lisa given the B sample. Jessica started to write a plan to Lisa on how they were going to escape, fearing the worst after being injected. Before it ever got to Lisa and the plan could come into fruition, the virus had failed to fuse with her DNA, and 3 days later after the injection, Umbrella had decided to kill her and placed her body in a tomb-like coffin. Lisa's DNA, however, did eventually fuse after a delay, so Umbrella decided to keep her for protective observation to monitor her, as she began to develop strength and incredible durability. During this time, Lisa decided to act up with fear about where her mother was, and what was actually going on with her, and what the hell they injected her with. After other attempts trying to calm Lisa, the researchers sent someone on the 15th of November to act as her mother, in order to pacify her, so she would think her mother was safe. This however turned out to have the opposite effect, with Lisa literally ripping off the face of the fake, and wearing the said face. So yeah, that went tits up. This started her obsession with collecting faces, and leaving Lisa to be destined to find her real mother to return her stolen face. She also escaped after this event for a short while. When exploring, she discovered a coffin on the 18th of November, believing her mother was actually inside. However, she was unable to confirm it, if it was true or not. During the 30 years of her imprisonment, with more experimentations and disfigurements by said experiments, her state deteriorated and her intellectual ability has also declined. I will now mostly be going over George Trevor's diary, but putting it into a chronological order so it isn't boring. I will also add extra details I also found. On 13th of November 1967, unbeknownst to George of his family being kidnapped and subjected to experiments, George had arrived at the mansion and was told they left early to see Lisa's aunt. The next day he was given a tour of the mansion, and this would be where it was revealed by Lord Oswald Spencer that the mansion would open up to become a pharmaceutical company, with the mansion itself becoming a hotel for the employees, which had confused Trevor as he first thought it was made for Lord Spencer's personal private resort. Shortly after he would be captured between 20th and 24th of November, George had been drugged and placed in captivity with his memory being foggy. He had now begun suspecting his family never actually left the mansion. He started to plan an escape using his knowledge of the interior, whilst also expressing remorse for his family, hoping that they were safe somehow. And yeah, we know they're not. Using various knowledge, by 26th of November, MVP George successfully escaped the room, but now had the task of remembering all the traps that he himself had created, along with his foggy memory, and he also states that he lost his favourite lighter given to him by his wife, making it even harder for George to navigate his way through the mansion, evading guards along the way. After spending 3 days roaming the mansion evading capture, he discovered his wife's high heel in the corridor, making him upset, however still doubting that they may have not shared the same fate as him. With a small glimmer of hope he had, George continued his desperate escape. He started to feel extreme hunger and dehydration by this time, also feeling like he was starting to go crazy by the lack of nourishment, which is what I also felt playing Resident Evil 1, and trying to figure out the puzzles without YouTube. On 31st of November, George had lit his last match from a pack of matches he must have found searching the mansion. The light guided him to a tombstone that had his name on it, George Trevor, just in case you forgot his name. They all knew all along that he would try to escape, and he had taken the bait and is now trapped and alone, knowing his fate would not be long after. Feeling deep regret for his reckless ego and not knowing what happened to his family, he hoped God would justify his death in exchange for their safety. This would sadly be the final time we hear of Trevor alive, with most of his memory now becoming blank. He most likely died on the 1st of December from thirst and hunger in the pit that had his marked grave. 28 years after the incident and the family had mostly been forgotten about, Lisa was practically a shadow of her former self. Not even most of the facility staff had known of her existence. During this time, Dr. William Birkin, the one from Resident Evil 2, had taken over the facility's new lead researcher and saw her as a valuable asset for test subjects for the new NE weird A letter type or Nemesis Alpha injection. Shortly after, her consciousness was regained somewhat, with intellectual abilities coming back to her along with her abilities such as regeneration and strength. So William had isolated a progenitor mutant strain with, there's a lot of confusing words in this bit. It would go on to be the foundations for the G virus. I hope I explained all this right. Over the next 7 years, with her regained memory, ability and strength, she had reignited her quest, gaining more faces and causing disruptions for Umbrella. She was called for elimination as she became more of a hindrance for them to keep around. However, she had survived due to potential help from John Clemens, William's successor. With regenerated powers that helped her recover, she then made a life for herself roaming the Arklay Mountains. I hope you're still with me. Okay, good. In May 1998, when the T-Virus broke out, Lisa Trevor sought to return to the estate and moved to a cabin, using various underground tunnels and prior knowledge living off the land. Stars then arrived to the estate, and this would be where Lisa had various encounters with Stars, and she had started bonking them on their head. Well, that was once, but it's still funny. However, she didn't actually kill them. You would meet her supposed fate during a fight with either Wesker and Chris, or Jill by herself, or with Barry, which helped her finally lift her mother's tombs in the process. She finally found her mother's face, however it was now a skull. She leapt into the darkness of the cave, finally fulfilling her quest. Then boom, all of a sudden Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles release. She still roamed the lab before bumping into Albert Wesker, who he himself was now a superhuman, and is now trying to escape the facility, which was set for self-destruction. Knowing him as one of the torturers, she began to follow him, and eventually the two fought, ending with her being pinned by a falling chandelier, which then Wesker had left her to her fate, as she exploded alongside the Spencer Mansion, concluding her story. So I hope you have enjoyed my telling of the RE events of the Trevor family. I'd only recently begun actually diving into the RE lore myself, so it's been quite fun, but it's hard trying to know what sources are true and what's making up stuff, so I relied on the game notes, relied on this website, that website, and plus lots of things are in the Japanese as well, so that was a pain. But yeah, I did my own little research, and yeah, I managed to do this video. I know there are theories about RE9 having Lisa Trevor, but I don't know how that would work out, but it's all just speculation at the moment. Anyways, don't mess with bioweapons. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, or maybe even a little cheeky subscribe, if you're feeling a bit cheeky. But yeah, honestly, have a good day, guys. See ya.